We're gonna be laying this tile today on this back wall. On here, it shows you which trowel you need to use. On here, I'm gonna be laying this tile today. I cannot do this. There's too much.
You're right.
It's rewarding. Good, yeah.
My belly. You haven't fed me today.
That's loud.
I'm hungry.
Oh, obviously. Before we get started, go ahead and subscribe right now. Hit the little button down there and subscribe, because I know none of you are going to stay till the very end of this and see the subscribe logo, so just hit it now. We'll wait. You too. Are you shy?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, I wasn't going to make any of you watch us put the red guard on the shower because it's just boring to watch, but the entire shower now has 2 coats on all the seams and all the fasteners, and we rolled 2 coats over everything. And I know that seems excessive, and honestly, you know, a lot of people don't do that, and you probably can get away with never doing it, but to me, just the cost of that prevention is so much cheaper than the cost of the repair if anything ever leaked. Anyway, the shower now is completely waterproof, and theoretically you wouldn't even have to put tile up in here. You could take a shower in here like it is now because it's completely ready to go. You probably wouldn't want to because the way it looks.
Or you're the devil.
Like Christina Aguilera.
What?
But anyway, now that that's all done, the next thing up is just to start tiling. On this back wall, we're going to be using a mosaic tile, and you need to make sure whichever tile you're using that you're using the right trowel to put the thin set on the wall. This tile actually calls for a 3/16 V-notch trowel, if you can see that. And they're not all the same, so you make sure you got the right one. On some of the other tile, we're going to be using a 1/4 inch, and you can see that the notches are way bigger on these. And if you have the wrong one, you can either put too much or too little thin set on the wall. So it's always a good idea to see what's recommended for the product you're using. After we finished tiling these niches yesterday afternoon, we went by Lowe's and I found another tile that I really liked. It's this matte gray, really a dark charcoal penny round, and I got a couple of those and showed them to Amanda, and we really like those better than what we did here. So I think I'm gonna bite the bullet and just take out what I did yesterday. And it stinks to have to redo all this, but I think it'll look cooler in the long run. So I'm going to take out what we put in the niche here and use the dark gray in there. I'm still going to use this on the wall behind here, just changing up the niche. So I'm going to take this out. After dry fitting my metal trim pieces to the shower niches with just blue painter's tape, I made sure to label them before I took them down. I labeled them top, bottom, left, and right, as well as designating a number for each shower niche. I just designated mine niche 1, and niche 2. These pieces all end up looking alike, so it's a good idea to label all of them so you can tell them apart after the fact. I was having a little trouble getting these pieces to lay flat right next to the metal trim because the metal trim sticks out just a little bit from the backer board. With bigger tile, sometimes you can just lay a little bit thicker layer of thin set down and kind of float your tile on top of it to make it even with the trim. But with these little mosaics, you really can't do that because there's not enough thin set there to even work with. So what I did is I just flipped the piece over and just beveled it a little bit on the wet saw so that they would lay smooth and flush in here. I just got finished tiling this outside wall here and I realized that my GoPro didn't film any of it. I had it on time lapse, but when I went back to check it, it just gave me a bunch of exclamation points where the video should have been. I wanted to show you what I did on this wall though. Ordered these spacers from Amazon. I've never used these before, but I've seen them in Lowe's and Home Depot. But you get a bigger pack for less money on Amazon. You get a higher quantity of the spacers themselves, because these you actually don't get to reuse. The wedges you do, but the spacers themselves, you just break them off when this is done, and part of it stays behind the tile so you can't reuse them. And they work really, really good. Level between these things is just flawless. I mean, it's like no kicker on these at all, which is something I just can't stand when tiles kind of stick out from each other. You kind of feel it when you rub across them. These little things, this part here, it's just a flat piece that kind of goes behind the tile, and then the wedge goes in this little slot here, pushes through, and it levels both of these tile with each other so that there's no lip on them at all. It came with this little tool, this little pair of pliers that will ratchet the wedge through the spacer if you had to tighten it down a lot, but I actually did all these by hand. They went in so easy I didn't even have to use this, but it does come with it in the kit. I've got this done all the way up to the ceiling now on this side, so all I have to do now, I had another one of these 1-bys down here to keep everything level to start with. I've got to pop that off and then just cut in my tiles here at the bottom all the way to the floor. Then this wall will be done. Then I get to do the same thing on this wall. Started laying out the tile for that opposing wall that I was showing you before, and I realized I'd forgotten something. This wall is actually going to intersect with this door jamb, and I'd forgotten about that. I laid this out can see up here, like I let my backer board go all the way over here, which is going to be roughly the same length as it was on this wall. I actually didn't have any more of this 1x trim enough to make the door jamb right now to do before I did the tile, but I did have this one little scrap piece that I'd used on this wall when I was leveling the wall out, so that's the reason it's got thin set still on it, but I'm using that as my guide. I tacked it up to where the door jamb would be on this wall, and I'm going to run my tile right up to it. When I get some more trim in and finish this out, this will be boxed in just like a normal door frame will be, and above that all the way to the ceiling I'll have the metal trim just like I used on the other side, and the tile up there will terminate into that one. I'm not going to run it all the way out here where I had it though. I'm going to actually stop it in line with this piece of trim, but since I'm doing that, I'll have to do something with this little overhang here where I ran out too much of this. I think what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to run some drywall tape on that, mud it, sand it, and paint it, and just try to make it look like the rest of the wall up here. If you haven't done very much of this, it can be a little tricky getting the measurement for this cutout because it's behind the tile. You don't really have a good reference point to find this mark. I've seen some people lay the tile up there and they'll kind of peek behind it to see if they can see where it is and just get a good guesstimate on where to mark it. But the easiest way is to pick two good fixed points and measure off those to get a good side point and an up and down point. What I'm going to do is measure off this wall here, and I'm going to measure off this tile up to it. But I'm going to have to include one of these spacers too, because the tile will sit up on top of that spacer. So I'll lay a spacer here and measure up to the center point of this, and then I'll measure from this wall to the center point of that. And now for the moment of truth. Boom. Lines up perfectly. And that is what you want it to look like. You want your tile to completely line up with the backer board behind it like mine is. That's perfect. And honestly, if you're not getting it this perfect, you really shouldn't even be doing tile to start with. You should leave this to professionals because that's what you're wanting right there. Just kidding. See how far off my tile is right here? If I bring it in line with this one, where the corners match up, my hole's off too. This is the piece of trim I cut earlier. Just need to slide it back behind there. That was the last piece of tile to install for the shower. Now I just have to take the spacers out, make sure everything's good and clean before I grout. I try to keep a bucket and a sponge beside me, and then I clean up any excess thin set that would get on the tiles as I was putting them in, but sometimes you'll still have a little bit of residue here and there that you have to clean off. The grout for the shower is going to be a little bit tricky because I'm going to use two colors in here. On the wall behind me with the hexagon tiles and the niches with the penny rounds, I'm going to use a light gray grout there. And on the opposing walls, I'm going to use a bright white that kind of blends in with that white tile. It's a little more time consuming to do it this way, but I think the effect will be pretty cool and it'll be worth it in the long run. Like I mentioned before, the wedges that are in these spacers, you can take those out and reuse those again. So I'm going to pull those out and keep those. The spacers themselves are a little trickier to get out, and it'll take a special tool to remove them. Okay, that's about as plain as I'm going to get it. I'm going to go ahead and try to grout this back wall at least real quick before I go home. Cleaning off your grout is by far the simplest part of laying your tile, but that's by no means saying it's any less important than the other steps. You definitely want to get this stuff really thoroughly clean because it'll leave a haze on there that's hard to get off after the fact. There's tons of different products out there, special buckets for cleaning grout and special sponges people use, and all that stuff works, but for some small projects like this, I'm just using a 2-bucket method, and that's 2 5-gallon buckets full of water and a basic yellow sponge. And we'll just clean a little section at a time, flip the sponge, wipe it down, rinse and repeat. That's it. Alright, this is legitimately the last thing I have to do before I put on the trim pieces to the shower fixtures. And this is it, pretty sure. Up at the top, we have to caulk this edge. Down through here where it meets the ceiling, got a little bit of a gap there, if you can see. And then on all the perpendicular edges, which would be where the 2 shower surfaces meet each other in the corners, and also down here at the bottom where the towel meets the tub, we're gonna caulk that too. We filled it in with grout when we grouted the shower, but it always cracks. Where these 2 surfaces meet each other, eventually they'll move a little bit and that grout's gonna crack every single time. So we use a grout caulk, which is more flexible, and it looks just like the grout itself, but it'll move a little bit with the shower and keeps that from breaking. Okay, the shower is basically done now, and I think it turned out really, really good. I know that the modern aesthetic's not for everybody, but it's definitely mine and Amanda's taste, and we really like the way this one turned out. This one's even more modern than some of the other ones we've done, but in my opinion, it looks really, really cool. There's a couple things that didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted to. The biggest one being that I planned on doing the bright white grout on the white tile, and it looks exactly like the grout that's on the tile behind us. But that's just what you run into sometimes when you get stuff off the clearance shelf. You don't really know exactly what color it's going to be. But overall, I think it looks really, really good.
I know we haven't put the trim on the fixtures yet. Hey, get back to work! I know we haven't put the trim on the fixtures yet, but we're waiting to the last cleaning to do that. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. We have exciting new projects coming up that you won't want to miss.
I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you got something useful out of it. I'm going to leave a link in the description below of all the products, materials, and tools we used in this. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye. Hey, get back to work!
I hope you guys enjoyed watching this way more than we enjoyed doing it, because this shower here was miserable. I can't say it, God. I hope you guys...